the world doesn't learn lessons. As you see, people don't even learn lessons about what happened in our country. What is happening across the countries where coups have been taking place, people should be asking themselves, are these coups just happening, or they're happening for a reason? And that is something that maybe has been ignored in the past for many years and hasn't been addressed. And that is really, what do you do for the development of these societies in these countries? And people have come to take it for granted that Africa is poor and therefore it must remain as such, which is not true, because Africa is actually very rich, both in terms of natural resources, human capital.
So guys, welcome back to the channel where a united Africa is an undisputed Africa. So here in this interview, we are seeing Paul Kagame is giving his take on the coups that currently taking place on the continent. And I agree with 100% with what he's saying. People are paying attention to the coup, but they're not paying attention to what led up to the coup, what the cause of it. And in this interview, he's explaining everything and what's happening in the continent and how we can go about having a better future. And if the coups are right or wrong, in his opinion. And let's just listen to the interview and let me know what you think about it in the comment section. Boom.
You can name it. I don't think there's any geographical space in this world that is so endowed with such things to build on as Africa. But in the end, it comes down to governance. How is Africa governed? How do countries govern themselves? And how, if they are doing that, are putting their people at the center of everything that is being done. So in the end, when you see a coup happening and ordinary people move onto the street and are happy, jubilating because of that, it tells you something. It's not just a coup that people should look at and say, well, this is the beginning, this is the end. There is that story behind. But there is another question that must be raised. All of these, for example, developed countries who are heavily present in every country on our continent, doing all kinds of things, teaching people democracy, human rights, freedoms. Then in the end, exploiting natural resources of the continent, making a lot of money, whether it is through companies or whatever is taking place. Sometimes countries, are playing their part directly in this exploitation of these natural resources that should have brought wealth to our countries. So one would ask, so why are you there for 50 years and you are doing all kinds of things, business, all kinds of transactions? For you, you get better for it, but the people of countries where you are doing it remain impoverished, if not even getting worse. So this is a question that...
Is that to the French? Is that to the Belgians? Is that to the Americans? Is it the Chinese?
All of them, absolutely. Why? Why would you be doing things worth billions, tens of billions of dollars?
Do you think there's a kind of neo-colonialism going on now in Africa?
I think there is just total confusion. From the beginning, I think colonialism never ended, really. It just changed forms. But I can't also blame others just for it. I think we need to take responsibility ourselves as Africans. Why do we accept such a things to happen? Why do we have almost everything and that works to benefit others more than we benefit from them? There are different ways of correcting that. Why don't we do that? So, I mean, sometimes you may explain or you may blame the exploiter, but even the exploited should be blamed.
I mean, you've been saying that message for a long time. You were chair of the African Union, and you were talking about picking ourselves, meaning African nations, up by our bootstraps, not being dependent, best in promising practices.
Yeah.
But when you look at the African Union and you look at its inability to stop some of these coups and to kind of look at this broad challenge of the ongoing relationship with the West and China that's just complicated, why is the African Union not more effective?
Well, the African Union is not more effective simply because the countries that make up this African Union, ourselves, we have a problem. African Union becomes a reflection of the country's problems as we see every day in each country.
Are other new organizations like ECOWAS making the AU less relevant?
Not really, because ECOWAS was supposed to be, is a regional economic entity. So it really doesn't make it irrelevant. It only maybe reflects the problems that go across the continent. Therefore, as we want to reform the African Union, we also need to be thinking of how do we reform these economic communities, because these constitute a smaller number of countries. You may say 7, 10, or doesn't matter the number, adding to 55.
Right.
It was a simpler way of saying if we reform the regional economic communities and their functioning, where then it makes it easier for the African Union, the central body that governs the continent, to do better.
So guys, that's the end of the interview. And so let me know what you think, because Paul Kagame in this sense brought up a lot of valid points, especially on the coups and on the multiple things he spoke about. But I don't want to go through it again because you just finished watching the video, so it don't make sense repeating it. But just let me know what you think about it in the comment section, and then we can have a discussion there. We can have a discussion there as well. Don't know. Thanks for watching. Boom.